looking live at the latest odds for the Super Bowl, which once again will be on ESPN. DraftKings Sportsbook says the Rams are actually the favorites, just slightly ahead of the defending champion Seahawks. And then you see the Ravens and the Bills next, and you see the rest that are on your list as we talk things over with the Hall of Famer Troy Aikman, the voice of Monday Night Football. We announced the first Monday night game this year will be Kansas City and Denver. So we just talked about some NFC contenders. Let's go to the AFC. There are two quarterbacks in particular that I think are playing for immortality. You're an immortal. You won 3 Super Bowls. You're in the Hall of Fame. There are two guys who I think are just missing that championship from their resume, and one of them is Lamar Jackson. He's a 2-time league MVP. We all know about the history in the playoffs. For the first time now, it feels like there's been a little bit of a culture shift there. New coach, feels like a little bit more is being sort of put on his plate. What are your expectations for Lamar Jackson going forward?
Well, the expectations are what they've been. I mean, you expect Lamar to be in the MVP conversation. You expect the Ravens to be right there at the end of the day, which they typically have been. I agree with you completely, Greeny, that when you are a veteran quarterback, franchise quarterback, and you've had the years that Lamar has had, now the coach leaves, you got a young coach, first-time coach coming in, that puts a lot on the plate of the quarterback. So the expectations certainly are going to be higher for him. Hopefully he can stay healthy, but I don't think anything changes. They didn't make that change expecting any kind of rebuild or a slow development as a football team. So the expectations are what they are. He understands that, and he's probably feeling a little bit more of the heat than he otherwise would.
Like when I'm just thinking this through, like when you're a franchise quarterback, you with the star on your helmet, I mean, there's so much that goes with that. And now here he was in on the coaching conversations at least. I don't know that he was actually in the interviews, but he was a part of that. I mean, that really there's a lot that goes into being a star quarterback.
Well, there is, and there's some ownership that comes with that. And I do think that he was owed the opportunity to at least be conversed with as far as what they were going to do at the head coaching position and have some input on that. He's earned that. And so I'm a big Lamar Jackson fan. He's one of the obvious real superstars of our league. But it's going to be interesting to see what that looks like. We've grown so accustomed to it being done one way with John Harbaugh, and now with Jesse Minter coming in, what that might look like, and how will things change offensively with a new offensive coordinator for him as well.
And then the other quarterback, I think in a similar situation, Josh Allen, your defending MVP, also ready to take that next step. And I keep saying, like, we talk about Lamar Jackson and Josh Allen as sort of the preeminent players of this time. But Mahomes is the one we put in the conversations with the all-time greats because he has the championships. Right. Allen needs that as well. Right. He's another one they made a coaching change. He's another one who seems to have been heavily involved in that. How about Josh Allen in Buffalo?
Well, when I look at Josh Allen and Lamar Jackson for that matter, now Joe Burrow, he's another one. He's at least gotten to the Super Bowl. But these two, to be on the teams that have been knocking on the door and yet not being able to get over the hump with Kansas City, and then last year with the stumbles that the Chiefs had, to not be able to take advantage of that any better than what they were able to, that was a real disappointment. And as I mentioned for Lamar Jackson, with some of the pressure that now lands on his shoulders, more so than what you would typically have as a franchise quarterback, I think the same, even maybe more so for Josh Allen, because they had a lot of success with Sean McDermott. Of course, Josh Allen's had a lot of success. He's an MVP player as well. And now I do think that he probably was very involved, or at least was able to communicate his wishes. And so they bring in Joe Brady, and now the expectations are that he's going to be the guy to get them over the hump and get them into the Super Bowl. And so I understand, as Josh, what he might be feeling right now going into this. And that would be, my advice, if I had any for him, would be to just try to not put so much on his shoulders, just be him. And what I know of Josh, he's a beloved guy in that locker room. The players respect him so much. And I think he does such a great job of, his communications, the way he talks with the press. He's always complimentary of his teammates. I expect him to handle it perfectly, but I'm as excited as anybody. I know all Bills fans. I'm a big fan of that organization. People maybe find that hard to believe because of my history with them and some of the Super Bowls.
You only beat them in 2 Super Bowls, but
but I've always been a fan. Jim Kelly, going back to those days. But even now with Josh Allen, I've known him since he came out of college. I worked that draft, and to watch what he's been able to do in the NFL has been remarkable. He was the perfect guy for that city, and they're lucky to have him.
You know, which has made me think of when you're talking about the pressure that exists on a guy like Lamar and a guy like Josh Allen. And they're having careers that are tremendous, and they're having lives that most of us could only dream about. And your partner, Joe Buck, once gave me some advice when he was working his first Super Bowl. He said he wrote on the top of his play sheet, "Have fun."
Yeah.
You know, because sometimes you forget to do that. And I do that at the draft now. I write that on the top of my notes. Is it fun? Like being Josh Allen, being Lamar Jackson, being Troy Aikman in 1993? Is it fun? It seems there's so much pressure. There's so much scrutiny. There's such microscopic evaluation of everything you do and say. Is it fun?
Yeah, I think it's fun. I thought there was a lot of scrutiny when I played, and there was, but there was no social media. You know, you didn't hear from all the fans the way that you do now. These guys now have to be so resilient and tough mentally, and I think that's a big part of the evaluation that has to take place when you're talking about drafting a young guy. You know, Mendoza's going to go through this in Las Vegas. The scrutiny is going to be much different from what he experienced in college, and are those guys capable of handling it? Is it fun? Yes. The fun is in the winning. I think the fun's in the competition, but the fun's also in the winning, and they've won a lot. So I think it's been a good life. They get paid, they get compensated. You know, someone asked me a while back, hey, do you think the Cowboys have let Dak Prescott down, meaning what we talked about earlier as far as the defense? I said, it's hard for me to think that anyone's let Dak Prescott down. He's the highest paid guy in the NFL. He's got a lot of really good receivers. I think they've been treating him pretty well over there in Dallas. So.
The reason it jumped into my head is because we're going to run out of time here, but just very quickly on Joe Burrow, he looked like a guy who wasn't having fun at the end of last season, right? And so as we sort of look at their season, we just have a quick moment here, like he looked like a guy who was feeling that pressure, who was feeling the weight of it.
Yeah, I think, he gets it. Joe's one of my favorite players. I just love the way he competes, the way he plays the game, everything about him. And I think just the frustration of them being able to do some things and him being able to play at a certain level and then not to have anything to show for it. And all three of those guys that we've mentioned, Lamar, Josh, and then Joe, they understand that ultimately they're going to be remembered. And all quarterbacks want to be remembered when they leave the game, but the way you get remembered is by winning Super Bowls. And for those guys not to have yet been able to do that, as I mentioned, Joe's at least gotten to one, but until you win one, no one remembers the ones that lose. So I'm pulling for all of them. I pull for all these quarterbacks.
Yeah.
I know how challenging the game can be. I know how hard it is to play. But we're blessed with a lot of really talented quarterbacks in this league.
Broncos and Chiefs, the opening Monday night. We'll find out where that game is going to be. What a pleasure to have you here, Troy.
Great being on with you.
Thank you very much for coming. Troy Aikman, we will see him, obviously, hopefully between now and then. But then when the season begins on Monday Night Football, meanwhile, we dive back into basketball next. It's all over for the Lakers. Is it also